What's good, everyone, and welcome back to another reaction video. Today we're reacting to Game Theory, I Solved the Hour of Joy, Poppy Playtime. Now, when it comes to this game, this one subject overall is like the most vague, but also not. I mean, for one, with the new chapter 4 out, and we got an idea of what's going on. We have an idea of what happened. We got information on what happened. We know how things went. We know how overall how chaotic everything went. We know who was who and who was pulling the strings in certain situations involving the whole scenario, and so on and so forth. But I feel like there's something more to this hour of joy. Because, I don't know, how was this planned to begin with? Every toy that has a human vessel and all that had to be cooperating with one another. It wouldn't make sense if it wasn't the case. So I'm thinking somehow before the Hour of Joy officially began, there was a case scenario where all the toys learned was gonna happen so that they could prepare for the Hour of Joy. At least that's what I'm thinking when it came down to it. I really need to do more. I really need to get this computer up and running for a Poppy Playtime thing, because honestly, I do want to try it. I have tried to do it. It's just that when I tried, the computer just got all laggy. And yeah, that honestly kind of ruins the whole thing. But yeah, I guess we're gonna see what Game Theory has in store for us on this one. So if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button down below, hit the subscribe button to support the channel, support the content provided, and so on and so forth. Hit the notification button, be notified immediately when your video comes out, and yes, if there's any videos I could recommend, leave it down in the comment section below. The link to this video is in the description, so be sure to give Game Theory's love and support for the video that they made. And yes, finally, let's get right on into it, shall we?
The Hour of Joy was an inside job. You heard me
Obviously.
right. Poppy Playtime's biggest and most consequential event didn't just happen because the toys wanted to rebel one day. It all hinged on the help of one employee, and I know exactly who it was.
Okay.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory, the show that is on this VHS right here. But to watch it, you'll need to hit that subscribe button. Yeah, YouTube snuck in the night and replaced my play button with a subscribe button. Listen, I don't make the rules. Let's just go along with their weird plan for now. I'm sure it won't backfire in any way whatsoever. Today, we're diving, or should I say falling, back down the Bunzo Bunny rabbit hole that is Poppy Playtime Chapter 4. Last time we focused on how this story is going to end, with us sacrificing ourselves to save everyone, but in the end, we'll actually save no one. The prototype would survive and go on to wreak more havoc on the world. So with that positive outlook, and the fact we can't really look much further forward than that, I wanted to instead look behind us, to the start of the prototype's plan, the Hour of Joy. The Hour of Joy is the moment from this franchise, the moment that separates the lore of Playtime's past from the games we're physically playing. And just like last time, thanks to Chapter 4, we have been given a few very small clarifying details that tell us exactly how the Hour of Joy came to pass. Because while the prototype is incredibly clever, and while the toys are incredibly strong and hungry, it turns out they couldn't pull off this plan on their own. They needed help. They needed someone who would go along with their weird plan. A plan that would almost certainly backfire on them for doing so. Maybe watch your back, theorists. As I've mentioned, in order to look back and figure out an earlier part of the franchise, we need to actually take a closer look at one of the more recent additions to the series and work backwards, because it's not really an indie horror.
I think I remember hearing that the person that helped with the whole experimentation for what's it called? The whole experimentation for the human toys was helping with the whole Hour of Joy case day scenario.
or a franchise if you're not retroactively adding lore to previous games with new ones. One of the new VHS tapes in Chapter 4 presents us with an image of a character we haven't really seen in a good while, a resource extraction specialist. These guys were the primary characters we played as in Mob Entertainment's spin-off multiplayer game Project Playtime.
Here's the job. You need to collect toy parts to make a giant toy. Get that giant toy on the train, then leave.
Sadly, this game has largely been abandoned by Mob for the last year and a half, which was a shame because it was a lot of fun to play.
Has anyone made a fan cam edit of Mommy Longlegs to I Am Your Mother?
But more importantly, it was surprisingly useful for lore purposes. The main thing for us was that the toys were running amok around the factory, which sounded awfully similar to what happened after the Hour of Joy, the big event on August 8th, 1995, where the toys finally rebelled against Playtime Co. and took over the factory. You can see the connection, right? The Hour of Joy happens, the toys take over, and so Leith Pierre, ever the businessman, decides to send these resource extraction specialists into the factory in order to keep their giant toy making operations alive, leaving them to fight off the giant toys that remained. That is the sequence of events that we've believed for a very long time. However, this Chapter 4 VHS tape tells us a slightly different story. You see, these tapes aren't just different colors, they also have their own labels to help us identify.
Really? I did not really pay attention to the names and all that, but that's actually kind of interesting. So, if I put this together correctly, this means that, what? That there's an order to them? Or something like that. Maybe. Hard to say, really.
Them. Things like Break Time, which was the tape with the security guards being on break that we talked about in our last video. Most of them are pretty on the nose, and this resource extraction specialist tape is no different, because on it is a label that reads 93 Theatre Incident. If that name doesn't ring a bell, I don't blame you. We've only recently learnt about it during the Chapter 4 ARG. Man, Bob really did just hide all of their lore in this thing, hoping people would solve it and pay attention, rather than putting it somewhere like, oh, I don't know, in the actual game? I don't know what you're smirking at, FNAF. They learnt this from you.
Who taught you how to do this stuff?
You, all right? I learned it by watching you.
Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, the theatre incident. As the name suggests, the incident took place in the Playtime Co. theatre. From what we could tell based on all of the burnt evidence photos we received, it was a fire that broke out and many people died. When the incident was then investigated by Playtime Co.'s private investigator, it was determined that the culprit was none other than Harley Sawyer. These two factors made it seem like a separate incident from the one in Project Playtime. They did both share the theatre setting, but the ARG didn't give us any indication that the experiments were involved in the theatre incident. It was just Harley Sawyer going insane and causing a fire. Now though, we have this tape that not only confirms the resource extraction specialists were there because of the theatre incident, it also confirms that the experiments were loose during the theatre incident, just like they are loose in the theatre of Project Playtime.
And are we just stopping the experiments back where they came from? Because I guarantee it won't be so easy to toss a new coat of paint over 60 visitors dead, or the dozen resource extraction specialists who went swimming in the bellies of those things.
It just lines up too perfectly. Project Playtime is the direct result of the theatre incident. Harley let the monsters out, they ran rampant across the facility, killing a bunch of people and setting the place ablaze, forcing Leith to create the resource extraction team in order to get the bigger bodies locked away once more. Now, this may seem like just a small...
Yeah, that sounds about right. Makes sense. Can't really say that there's like anything false about it, because it seems like something a company would do in a case scenario like this. Well, in a case scenario that has like things running around trying to kill everyone. That, yeah. But other than that bit, yeah, I don't see anything that was said that seems wrong, because it seems very accurate in this case scenario. Yep. Not seeing anything wrong with it.
change to our understanding of the Poppy Play timeline. But actually, this one alteration has massive ripple effects to other theories we've had over the years. One example is the identity of the player character. Thanks to the Orientation Notebook, I had theorized that its author, PW, a scientist for Playtime Co., might be the player character. They were able to write about the incident and the extraction specialists. So if the incident was the Hour of Joy, that would mean they had to have survived the Hour of Joy in order to talk about it. But if the resource extraction team was formed after the theater incident, as we are now being shown, that means PW likely suffered the same fate as their colleagues and didn't survive the Hour of Joy. Therefore, they can't be the player character. Now, there is still a chance that my theory is proven true down the line. We know the player didn't show up for work that day and was likely involved in the experiments due to the hallucinations in Chapter 3, focusing on their regret, and in Chapter 4, playing sounds from the lab at the end of the chapter, the place the experiments were happening.
Not
Right now,
wrong.
we just don't have any evidence that it was PW rather than just another scientist. And PW's diary entries do end the same day as the Hour of Joy, so I'm not particularly hopeful. This would also snowball into the current status of Leith Pierre. Again, because PW was writing about Leith forming the team, we thought that meant Leith was alive after the Hour of Joy. But as this is now tied to the theater incident, it's most likely that he too perished during the Hour of Joy like everyone else. However, the biggest change this has to our understanding about the lore relates to the VHS tapes that we received not in Poppy Playtime, but in Project Playtime. During each phase, we received a VHS tape that contained recordings of Harley Sawyer and his Bigger Bodies initiative. But at the end of each of them, the tape suddenly changed to a text-based message from a mystery character. Based on their use of plurals when referring to themselves, them saying things like, "You made us this way," and their use of the same telephone that Ollie used in Chapter 3, we believed this to be the prototype talking to us. Now that we know the Ollie we've been talking to is indeed the prototype,
What did you do with Ollie? I'm right here, Poppy.
this feels all but confirmed. The thing is, we've never really been able to put our finger on why they're talking to us, other than to feed us fans more lore. There are lines like, "You must prove yourself and we will call you when the time arrives," which felt like we were going to be part of some big master plan, though that didn't really make a lot of sense with Project Playtime being after the Hour of Joy. But now that we know this game comes before the Hour of Joy, and thanks to a special VHS tape from Chapter 4, things become much clearer.
How could this happen? There's fail-safes, security measures. It's impossible. Personal agendas have long been the downfall of this company. Is it unreasonable to believe they were conspirators?
This VHS is titled Warden Office 8/8/1995, the same day as the Hour of Joy. And despite there supposedly being a bunch of systems in place, the experiments have managed to get through them and commit the Hour of Joy. That, my friends, is why the prototype is talking to us on the VHS tapes of Project Playtime. After the theater incident, they are looking for ways to kill everyone, to cause the Hour of Joy, but they need help from an employee. They are asking us to betray our colleagues and allow the toys to escape and kill everyone. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that the person watching the VHS tapes in Project Playtime is the same character as our player character in Poppy Playtime, and that's because of one crucial detail that we're given in this VHS tape.
But without executive access, how could anyone even get through?
It couldn't just be any old employee helping the prototype. It had to be an executive, someone with access to the Omni-Hand. For a while, we felt like our player character could be one of the executives, but more recently, it felt like that was less and less the case. And then in Chapter 4, Harley said this.
I can't say I remember seeing your face before.
Harley knows the executives very well. That's been clear since the beginning. So for us not to be recognized, we cannot be playing as one of the executives in the main series of games. But the person from Project Playtime that's watching the VHS tapes, the one that is helping the prototype, likely is. And the best part, I know which one it is. You might be thinking the answer is...
Oh, that's... You know, with that said, I never really thought of it like that. Huh, that's actually pretty interesting. Not gonna lie. So, it can't be like a random person at all. That's for sure. And it has to be an executive. Too bad I don't remember all the names of people mentioned in the in the more recent chapters, because I feel like it was probably in one of the more recent chapters, that's for sure. But yeah, other than that little tidbit, let's see where this is going. Because from what it sounds like, it basically sounds like the one we're in Project Playtime, that person is the one that helped, maybe, in the whole case scenario of murdering all of our colleagues in Poppy Playtime, and was to help with the Hour of Joy. Or maybe it was to help with getting things ready for the Hour of Joy while someone else helped.
Obvious. Harley, he's holding a big grudge against Playtime Co.
Oh.
When I get my hands on you,
Oh.
PW refers to him as one of the executives.
Oh, right. I thought it was someone else, like a living actual person. No. Okay, so we are bringing that up. Then yeah, it was him. I think I mentioned it at the beginning, at the very least. But yeah, it's that guy. He did the whole thing involving the Omni Ham, freeing everyone, all that. I think he stole it from the person that from one of the executives that was watching over him. And yeah, something like that. Honestly, I hear a lot of stuff when looking for videos to react to and all that. It's kind of hilarious to hear how that goes, but yeah, that's a thing. But getting away from that a little bit and onto this.
In the orientation notebook, and thanks to another VHS, we know he's been working with the prototype pretty much since Leith betrayed him and turned him into a discount FNAF endoskeleton.
Even when this place was fully operational, we were beating our heads against this.
So of everyone, he's the one with motive to betray the company. The thing he lacks, though, is the means of which to do so. He was an executive before becoming an experiment himself, but he was turned into an experiment to take away some of his power.
from now on, you're here to give the lab boys answers when they need them, and carry out procedures when and how we tell you to. That's it.
In that tape with the Warden, he doesn't currently have access to the Omni-Hand, and so is using the Hour of Joy to manipulate the Warden in order to get one for himself. But if it's not him, then who is it? Well, according to the Warden, only 4 people have the executive access necessary to pull off something like this. Leith Pierre, Stella Greyber, Eddie Ritterman, and himself. Quick side note, but hey, look, we now know who the 4th slide was back in Chapter 2. With the Warden being the 4th executive, it only makes sense that the 4th slide is his. So, good job, Mob, another minor mystery solved. Although, I have a feeling they didn't give us his name because they realized coming up with a name using the letters they left on the floor doesn't really work, but I digress. With there being only 4 potential suspects, it becomes pretty easy to narrow down which one is our Project Playtime accomplice. It can't be the Warden, as the VHS shows he's pretty scared and confused by the whole ordeal. You know, unless he's just the most incredible liar. But we've already got plenty of those in this series, so I don't think Mob's gonna want to go back to that well too often. Right, Mob? You don't want to go back to that well too often. It's also unlikely to be Leith Pierre, as he's all in on the Bigger Bodies initiative. He'd have no reason to want it to fail. He even keeps the Doctor alive as a computer specifically because he needs him to keep the project alive. So Leith is also off the table. Before Chapter 4, we didn't really know a whole lot about Eddie, but in this chapter, we finally get to hear from the man himself, and he's fun.
I'm a businessman, Mr. Silver, and I don't like get angry. I get paid to see that things get done. And this, like everything else, will get done.
Man, why does the British guy always have to be so unapologetically evil? That leaves us with Stella as our only remaining suspect. Stella has always been an intriguing character to me. Much like Rich, she's one of the few characters that's been around on these VHS tapes since Chapter 1. Her presence felt so important that in our very first theory, we suspected that she might have been the person turned into Poppy. We later changed our view on that due to some other evidence, and with this new chapter, it's very clear Poppy is Elliot's daughter.
I wish you were here, Dad. When you were running this place, you always knew what to say.
But that left Stella without any real role to fill. And yet, she is still very present and being shoved down our throats. Like she does have an important role that we just haven't figured out yet. Maybe this could be it. Except thanks to another VHS tape in Chapter 4, we hear Stella talking to Leith about being completely on board with the Bigger Bodies initiative, just like all the others.
Well, the work itself. What you've all been able to do? I mean, it's nothing short of a miracle. That's a change I want to help make.
And like that, we are out of executives, and Stella's role is once again left unanswered. Or it would be if it weren't for one thing: the timeline. In the Chapter 3 ARG, there was a note about the bigger bodies version of Catnap being introduced to Playcare. Stella has written part of that report, so this takes place after her meeting with Leith in the Chapter 4 VHS. And yet, despite saying in the meeting that this is for the greater good, her focus is less on Catnap's effectiveness and more on how the kids were responding. She states that she actually doesn't want to use Catnap on the kids because it will scare them. And even despite the kids warming to him, she claims to, quote, still have reservations. While she said that she was okay with everything to Leith, really, she still wants to protect the kids. In the actual Chapter 3, a VHS shows how excited she is to have one of the children adopted, only to realize that they are one of the children being used for an experiment.
Amazing.
You'll be perfect for... Oh, it appears there's been some complications. The form says testing.
You're in charge of all this. How could you not know?
I don't. I'm sorry.
Now, there is a world where this tape happens just before the one we find in Chapter 4. That this incident is the reason Leith has to tell Stella what's going on. But listen to that clip again and pay attention to Stella's delivery.
You're in charge of all this. How could you not know?
I don't. I'm sorry.
That "I'm sorry" is what does it for me. She spends the conversation saying she doesn't know what's going on or what testing means. But her "I'm sorry" feels weighty, knowing even. She is the head of Playcare. She should know everything that's going on, and if she didn't, I don't think she'd be keeping her composure quite so well. But she's not panicking or promising to resolve the issue. She just sounds crestfallen, defeated, like she's had the realization that it's another kid she couldn't save, because she does know what testing means. Then finally, in the Chapter 4 ARG, right after the theatre incident, we get one more recording that shows us that Stella, once again, still cares for people.
Poor, poor people. Did we really have to...
Did what was necessary, Miss Greyber.
Of course.
Despite supposedly being on side with Leith, she continues to question their violent methods and then stutters when trying to keep her composure. Because if she doesn't, she could end up like those poor people.
Word of this doesn't breathe beyond the factory's wall. I've made sure.
What we're seeing are the cracks in Stella's armor. She tried to get on board, to see things as Leith did, but she could never really justify Playtime Co.'s actions. The theatre incident showed that the progress Leith had promised her wasn't being made. The kids were still becoming monsters, but she also knew there was nothing she could do about it, making her the perfect candidate for the prototype's plan. After the theatre incident, Stella went back to her office in the Playcare, and that is when the prototype reached out through the tapes. He asked her to trust him and sent her his iconic Ollie phone to feed her more instructions when the time was right. In the Phase 2 tape, the prototype recognizes that she wants answers from them and promises they will come in time. If Project Playtime hadn't been unceremoniously abandoned, I believe we'd have seen those answers. They would have been the prototype telling Stella exactly what she needed to do and promising her what he'd promised everyone else, that the orphans and the toys would all go free, escaping their horrible fate. All she'd have to do is use her executive access, the Omni Hand, to open the way for the prototype and all the toys to escape. And hearing that there was finally a chance to save the orphans without the wrath of Leith or Eddie coming down on her, I have no doubt that she would have accepted that deal. But as we know oh too well at this point, all of that was just another one of the prototype's lies.
I thought we were gonna leave. Leave the factory. Not this. Prototype says we can't leave. Not now, not ever.
He lied to everyone about what the Hour of Joy was. The toys didn't escape. They killed everyone in the factory, and the orphans were locked away inside the prototype's lab. Just like Poppy, just like all the toys, Stella had the rug pulled out from under her. She was tricked, and based on how the prototype was more than willing to punish Poppy when she didn't agree with his motives, he definitely wouldn't have been above killing Stella too once she realized she'd been sold a lie. That being said, I'm not totally sure that's how Stella's story ends. I'll admit, this is a little more on the speculative side, but just like how I've been convinced Rich is going to be way more important to the actual games because he keeps showing up in VHS tapes in every chapter, I'm also convinced that Stella has to be more directly involved with the games rather than just being an off-screen character. If we think about it, she was in charge of play care. She cared for the orphans, not just on an emotional level, but physically cared for them inside the facility. If the prototype wanted to keep these orphans alive for all these years, he might need someone with the skills and desire to help him do that. Stella had helped once before. She'd proven her trustworthiness, so why not have her continue to help him while he worked with the doctor to find whatever this secret is.
I'm still your best shot at cracking that secret.
And as for Stella, while she may not have appreciated being lied to, she saw what happened to anyone that opposed the prototype. We also know that when push comes to shove, she will bend the knee, just like she did with Leaf. I could easily see us entering the labs in Chapter 5, but when we find the orphans, it won't be the prototype we face. It'll be Stella, or whatever it is she's become. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching.
Now that's an interesting thought process, though I don't know for sure. Maybe she had a help in delivering the Omni Hand, or maybe even forcing the situation to happen to where the Omni Hand was given to the doctor. Because, in all honesty, I don't think that the prototype used the Omni Hand himself. Obviously, it definitely was the doctor, and all this and all that. And yeah, I think that is going to be the case scenario going on. It wasn't, what's the word? You know what? I'm just going to bluntly put it. I think it was the guard, for sure. But I think Stella had a hand in convincing the guard into, giving up his Omni Hand. Or forcing a situation where he had no choice but to listen and give up his Omni Hand freely, because from his characteristics, he's scared, he's cowardly, and all this and all that. So if he gave up his Omni Hand, he thought, hey, you know what? Maybe this deal will work out, and if I fulfill my role, I can leave this place with little to no problem. I think that was what happened. At least to me, that feels like the case of what's going on. Yeah, that actually sounds really right. But I do think Stella had like a hand into why he gave it up. The reason being one of the reasons why she had to give it up. Yeah, it's giving enough points to say that it is the case scenario, but I also don't know for sure. But it would be interesting to see that Stella would come out and actually do something. Yeah, it would be an interesting twist. I'm not gonna lie, I am really curious about it now. Now, I didn't see the previous theory, mainly because I think that one was over an hour long, and that was not something ideal to me. But, yeah, maybe I'll do a reaction on that one. I mean, I did a compilation of, I did a whole crazy thing of reacting to, the SpongeBob conspiracies. Maybe I'll do the same for it. But, yes, with this all said, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button below, hit the subscribe button to support the channel, support the content provided, and so on and so forth. Hit the notification button to be notified immediately when the video comes out. And, yeah, with all this said, again, hope you all enjoy, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!